I wasn't kidding when I said this was going to be a fun episode because I am being dumb as fuck right now. Okay. So we're on the qualification question.
Hey y'all, thanks for joining us for another episode of 911 Delta Tethered for Life. This podcast may not be suitable to all listeners due to language and subject matters. Please listen with care.
Hey, y'all, grab those headsets. It's time for another episode of 911 Delta Tethered for Life podcast. We're your crazy host, Quesadilla, and
Annabug. Well, let's get this party started, Case. Thanks for listening, everybody. Last week, we had a great conversation with Dr. Meredith about what it takes to become and maintain as a 911 dispatcher. Casey, what was your biggest takeaway from that episode?
well, I too, before I answer that, just want to thank her again for coming on. She was absolutely amazing. So I cannot wait until she comes back on. I think the biggest thing, and there were so many things because I was so intrigued by everything that she was saying that I, kind of left you hanging a little bit, but only because I was just, wow, like everything she said, she was talking about me. And I guess just the validation of that, hey, I am somewhat normal. I mean, I know I have other issues, but for the most part, feeling everything that I feel since I've gotten out of the profession, so to speak, it's all normal and it's okay to feel that way. And her saying some things on how to cope and really hit home for me. So I'm glad I'm not completely broken.
Yeah, I thought it was super cool that she talked about how, burnout is actually an agency thing and compassion fatigue is something entirely separate. And I'm excited to talk about that again because I totally agree. And I know that I've been in some classes where they talked about the difference, but I don't feel like anybody ever came out and said burnout is an agency thing. The people in charge, the people that are running the show are causing that. Like, and that sounds harsh, but that's the problem. And compassion fatigue is just a personal, I am worn the fuck out from dealing with this shit.
Mm-hmm.
And burnout is I'm worn the fuck out from dealing with the administrative bullshit of my job.
Right.
Right?
Yeah, I'm glad she brought up management and the folks that, run the entire operation because none of them are really ever held accountable for any of it. It's always, us in the wrong, and it's not
Right. If you don't like
always
it,
the
get another
case.
job, whatever,
Right.
whatever. Right. The agencies, from us kind of, keeping track of social media now and paying attention to what we're seeing, the agencies, and I know even in courses that I've been in, there are agencies that have employees that have been there, 30, 35, 40 years. There's a reason for that. These people aren't just
Yeah.
crazy.
Right.
They're not dealing with BS every day and like, please give me more. They're not just gluttons.
Mm-hmm.
So some places are doing it right. I think we could all learn a lot from that. I'm sure we'll learn a lot from Dr. Meredith when she comes back on. So I'm really
Yes.
excited to talk about that.
Me too. I can't wait.
Yeah. So, and you guys out there, if you've got anything you want to talk about, any questions about those things, hit us up on the socials or the email. Let us know
Yes,
so we
anything.
can pose those questions.
Now's your time, folks. I mean, this is a real doctor we have here.
Yes, with experience too. So,
Yes, who specializes for folks just like us. So
Right.
yeah, now's the time. And there's no copay.
That's right. There's no copay. There's no surprise billing.
So this is your free one time to get your questions asked or whatever for her. Yeah. Um, so, Bug, tonight we're going to be addressing some of the responses from some things that we have been posting on the Facebook, Instagram, TikTok pages. And then we're going to give our 2 cents on some of the other questions and polls that are out there on from other social medias that are geared towards dispatching. But before we have some fun with that, how was your week?
It was good. It kind of has gone by in a flash.
Yep.
It's like when you get away for a couple days and I mean, I planned it, right? And then planned on not having stuff to do for those days that I was gone. But then you come back and it's like, wham,
Yep.
you got all this stuff to do and time's just ticking away. So it's been good. It's just been kind of crazy. I feel like it's been busy and it's you know. So,
Well,
how was
good.
your week?
It's good. I also have had a pretty fast week already. I know it's only middle of the week, but I feel like the days have gone by super fast, and I know I have totally just fucking jinxed myself for the rest of the week.
Yeah, well, you had a big change in your job.
I
So,
did. I did.
yeah,
Yes. So it's been really
yeah,
exciting and different. But yeah,
cool.
so getting settled in to the new office and trying
Yeah,
to get
got your own office
organized.
now.
Got
Mhm.
my own office, looking over the big city.
Can you
Yep.
see the river?
That's on the other side of the building. So
That's right. Yeah.
yeah. But yep. Got big things happening and doing good. So far, so
Cool.
good, anyways. But I do not want to jinx myself. But I don't know.
Yeah,
It's
don't say the
amazing.
Q word now.
No, definitely not. Definitely have gotten a lot of stuff done. Being in my own little spot. So yeah,
So we posted two questions after last week's episode. So Casey, what did people feel were some misconceptions that people had about dispatchers or dispatching in general?
we got a couple of responses to that question, and one was dark humor. Does that not go to that question? Look
Well,
at that.
I think that's true.
I'm
I don't think that's a
struggling.
misconception. I think
It's
that we
definitely not.
do, and sorry about that, but that's the way it is.
Yeah.
And it was interesting because I was listening to another podcast where I was a female firefighter, and she was saying that she believes in the last, say, 20 years of HR really coming into the fire service in one way to allow women to be more welcomed into the fire service, but that things have gotten so PC that people are afraid to, bond like
Hmm.
they used to over the sixth sense of humor, uh, you know, sex jokes, like the difference in, male and female and things like that. I don't know that dispatchers have that problem. I don't know if it's because normally there's more women than men, and so we just kind
Hmm.
of roll
Roll
over
with
the
it.
men like whatever.
Yeah.
Um, I don't know, but it was really interesting to hear her as a female talking about how that's not something, and this was she's a firefighter out west talking about, how that's maybe something that people are a little afraid of now instead of being a bonding thing. And I
Mhm.
get that you don't need to post your sick sense of humor on TikTok, okay? Like you don't, I've seen those posts
Yeah,
and like that's not something that you do, but to talk about it amongst yourselves, in the station, in the comm center, whatever,
right.
we do that. That's how we cope.
Yeah,
It
that's a
is what it is.
huge way that I coped. And if I didn't have that and didn't have the folks around me that understood that and felt the same way and did it, then I would have never lasted 16 years.
Right.
No way. No way. So yeah.
Right.
Um, I
Let me
think
tell you another
another
let me tell you another funny story though, while we're on this topic. So my my kids have always really been into like military songs and things like that. And Maverick, he's had this song in his playlist. It's a military cadence song from the Airborne Rangers, and it's called Gory Gory, What a Hell of a Way to Die, right? I mean, it's been around forever. Well, just last night, he realized what they were singing about. And he's like, oh my God, why would they make fun of that? I'm like, well, you know, that's what they do. And you just
oh,
you make fun of it because it can happen, when you jump out of an airplane however many times.
yeah, I mean something's bound to happen one of those times, right?
Right. And so anyway, so it's just a funny segue there
Yeah.
to the sick sense of humor. And yeah, now our
Yeah.
children are old enough to start grasping it, so I guess we gotta cut it back. I don't know. Whatever.
Well, I definitely am guilty of that. So,
Yeah.
um, another misconception that I think, um, personally, is that, for most of the folks that call in, think that one, we know everything. If they called in 5 minutes ago, you're the one that knows everything. Yeah, no, no, I probably don't. Um, that we are human, so we do have feelings. We do, whatever. And a lot of folks just think, and we're not the ones responding. A lot of people think that we're on the phone, but we're also, I guess, in the ambulance or the fire truck, police car on our way. Get here now. Like, yeah, nah, I'm not.
Right.
So
No, I'm not coming.
sorry.
Yeah.
I'm sitting here
Oh,
sipping on my nice cold Pepsi Cola, listening to your ass run, your mouth run. Yeah, no, I'm not coming. you know?
ah, one of
So,
my favorites. And even the law enforcement officers are the worst about this, right? Worse than the citizens because the citizens will do it too. But why are you going to call me before you leave your house to come on shift and ask me what the roads are like? Bitch,
yeah,
I don't know. I have been sitting in here for 12 hours. I don't know. It looks snowy outside. That's what I can tell you because I actually have windows in this particular building or a
yeah,
camera that I can see outside. But other than that, I don't know. You
yeah,
have uh your brothers on the radio who have been out driving around. Why don't you hit them up and ask them?
yeah.
Or better yet, dial their little cell phone number from your phone. That way you're
hmm
not hogging on my radio time.
Like
Okay?
this ain't no, what
Right.
is it? WKRP in Cincinnati. Like we don't know that shit. Was that a
Right.
TV show or
I
something
mean,
back in the day? They
I
say
mean,
that.
come on. Like,
Yeah,
oh,
no,
that kills me.
we
Yes.
don't know the weather.
Yes. And we
Um,
do not know um all of the current local gossip. I'm sorry. I mean, I might know that there's an ambulance at so and so's house for something, but I'm not going to tell you
right.
why.
Right.
So don't call and ask.
Yeah,
And
that was one of our responses we got from a listener was that
if
the
that's the
job,
reason, right? If that's the reason
yeah,
you want to be a dispatcher,
yeah.
no,
Um,
because you're going to get
that
tired of it quick.
right, not social hour. The job is not a social hour or a way to have all the local gossip. Isn't it the truth? Holy shit.
The other question that we asked was, what do you think the most important qualification for someone wanting to be a dispatcher is? And it seemed to me that the doc seemed to land on resilience as her number one answer.
Hmm.
But what did people say about that, Casey?
We had a response that information absorption and retention is crucial, which I totally agree with on that, and the ability to disseminate it to responders on the road, which I also agree with 100%. Um,
Yes. And that's interesting because that was actually one of the questions that we saw on social media that we were going to talk about. So, what other good questions did you find out there on social media?
yeah, it was kind of fun. I was like, we should just put our 2 cents on some of these. So another one that gave me the heebie-jeebies was, does anyone work for an agency that has 24-hour shifts, like as dispatchers? And the responses were more so leaned against it, but surprisingly, there were quite a few that actually were looking for or wanting their agency to switch to this. And I'm thinking, what in the world? Um,
So, yeah,
yeah, so
I didn't see this one. So, but I did see a post recently about somebody talking about a person who like worked the weekend shift and leaving their crap all over the place. And I'm like, and it like crap by like sleeping paraphernalia, like pillow and blanket. And I'm like,
uh,
well, were they like they're there for like, multiple days or and of course we've had that happen in storms and things like that,
mhm.
but regularly. So there are agencies out there that do 24-hour shifts. Now, how do they do that? Like, are there multiple people on? Did anybody say? See, because now I'm curious too.
um, I know some couple of the responses they were allowed like nap time, but I'm thinking, mm, is that always like a
I mean, like, are we
given
talking an eight
nap
hour nap
time?
or?
I mean, I'm not quite sure, I mean, because what if shit's hitting the fan? Or I mean, you're just gonna get up and go take your nap? Like I doubt that. um, but
Yeah, I mean, yeah.
the majority of the folks were I didn't really see any explanation of how it actually worked.
Okay.
Because a lot of the folks were saying or responding that they, work 12 and that kind of thing, and now it's long enough. That was a lot of the responses. Um, but then there were a few that were like, well, if anybody who, whose agency does do the 24-hour shifts could send them information that they wanted to actually talk to their agency about, doing that. I was like, but why?
Yeah, God, I don't know. I mean, if you were not busy, let's say, I don't know, you're fielding like less than 15,000 law enforcement calls, maybe 3,000 to 5 fire EMS calls a year, and you had two people on shift, so one person could sleep, and then I, I
Mm.
mean, I guess it could work, but it would just be I don't know how. I just, yeah, I
Yeah,
don't,
I
I
mean, I
don't,
can understand it for like fire rescue folks,
and
even
I
maybe
know
the police folks, but
it's
they're
even
out and about
hard.
and they're doing, can do things and they are allowed to nap at certain times and but they also get woken up if they're called, like
Right. I
but
mean,
being in
and
dispatch, I don't know. I just it's mm-mm.
yeah, and I
No.
can say, from being married to somebody who's been on the fire truck and been on the ambulance at night, you know, you this fool has gone to calls and not remembered a damn thing. Or remembered how he got there.
Oof, that's scary.
So there is that sort of wake up time that
Hmm.
if you're having to answer a 911 call, like at least if you're driving is kind of, uh what would you call that? Like an automatic skill, right? And if the GPS is telling you where to go and you know the area, there's probably not a lot of people on the road this time. So you're kind of getting there. You have some time to get awake and sort of get your bearings and whatever. But it's like when the 911 call comes in, there's not really that wake up time. And I have worked with people who fell asleep, and some of the shit that has come out of their mouths has been hilarious. So, I mean, I remember one time, um, I was working with a girl and she answered 911. She picked up the phone before I did, but good God, she was talking about getting somebody a ham sandwich.
Oh my gosh.
And the person on the phone was like, what? I don't understand. And I basically just had to butt in and take over the call because she had been asleep.
Holy
Um,
crap.
yeah, so it's I just don't see that being
No, I
I just don't
couldn't.
see that being very
I think,
advantageous. And of course,
yeah.
also, I mean, in this day and age now, like back when my husband started, it wasn't so much, but anymore, especially in the newer fire stations and whatnot, the bells, whistles, alarms, lights, and shit that go off with the tones is enough to wake the dead. So if that doesn't wake you up, like I don't know. But
Unless you're
there
on
are
Ambien.
people.
If you're
My,
on
my well, my
Ambien, you might
husband
as
has
well.
worked with some people that like he's had to drag out of the bunk,
Mm.
and I'm like, I don't sleep that well anyway, so I'm certainly not sleeping through all that. Um, but I don't know. We should ask my brother because he's a good sleeper too.
Yeah, I wouldn't be able to do that. But to me, it seems like fire rescue folks, a 24-hour shift is normal. And I know
Yeah,
it's
I
not
think it's
normal, but
and
that would
it
be
is
the only
hard.
group that I would say and like I would understand.
Yeah, and I feel like in places where it's super busy and they don't have a good rotation or they just don't have enough units to have a very good rotation,
Yeah.
it's exhausting for those people. I mean, especially medics, sometimes the fire trucks don't go out as often, so the ambulance are what really takes the
Hmm.
hit generally. And I I just I would not want to do that.
Yeah, no,
I
I could
wouldn't
not.
Yeah, I wouldn't want to do it for 12 hours is enough. I've done 18-hour shifts. I was exhausted after every one of them. And I like 12s as opposed to like 8s or 10s because I would like to get my 3 days done and
Hmm.
go on my merry way. Of course, it's not the way it usually works, but if
Yeah.
it did work like that, it'd be fantastic. Um,
Well,
so
12 hours in dispatch is enough, especially around the 2, 3 o'clock a.m. time frame where you're like bored out of your fucking mind
Oh, see, I always thought
and
like 4 to 5 was the worst.
you're like now chugging six Pepsi Colas by that point. You've already had that and now your ass still is not awake. Yeah, you know there's a problem.
Yeah.
So yeah, no,
Yeah.
I would love for somebody whose agency has 24-hour shifts for dispatchers to hit us up on that one because I need to know how this works.
Right.
Because I don't get that one at all. Um, one of another social page had if you have a caller calling on 911, not knowing if they've called the right number, and it's a non-emergency situation, do you educate them on the use of the system and do you provide them with the non-emergency number? And does the agency have a policy on this? Okay, but I cannot wait to hear your response on this one.
Because it depends on my mood. As far as I know, our agency does not have a policy uh, exactly on that, but I could be wrong. Um, I depends on my mood. If things are busy and I can just help them quickly and get them off the phone, it's fine. I may mention, hey, this is the non-emergency number in case you need it. If I feel like it's really not an emergency and I'm a little miffed about it, I might go ahead and transfer them to the non-emergency line, even if I'm the person that picks it up, just for the sake of it. Um,
Yep.
but if they're abusive and they keep, doing it, then yes, they're going to get an education. But otherwise, I mean, what's the most common opening line to your 911? What is the address of your emergency? Well, it's not an emergency, but okay.
hmm That's about 85% of first things
Right.
that are said.
And I don't have 85% of my time cannot be dedicated to educating people on the right number to call because you know what? They're not going to remember. They're not going to put it in
hmm
their phone.
Yep.
And so, yeah, that totally depends on my mood. And as far as I know, we don't have a policy on that. But it's pretty
Yeah,
funny. What did people say on the social media post? Did you read the comments? Because that would be one where I would have been like, "Oh, let me read these comments."
that one I did not because I figured it was probably
Right, a lot of sick sense of humor going on there.
that or something that was really going to piss me off because
You're gonna get that
but
one person who's all proper and like,
yeah. And
yeah,
I'm
there's
with you. It definitely would not only depend on my mood, but it's going to definitely depend on their tone when they call. If it's that
yes,
like I owe them something or it's my job to give them
right,
the yeah, no, then you're definitely not only going to get told about 911 use and I will provide you with the non-emergency number, but I will not be nice and transfer you, even though it is literally a click of a
right,
button.
right.
Yeah, no,
I mean,
nope.
I don't remember if I don't remember if we worked together when this was going on, but remember the little old, did you have a little old lady that would call and ask for the time?
I did not have
Oh
that,
my goodness, she was so cute. She would call like early in the morning and ask what time it was.
but I
Bless
do
her. And then she'd call
remember.
like late at night. And not late at night, but like after shift change, like
Oh,
7:30 p.m. or something. And because the she always called the time number and it didn't work anymore. So
I remember that time number though, and someone recently did
somebody did ask about that on social media,
the other
like
day.
right, what
Yes.
was the number? And I had no idea, but this poor little old lady, We just used to tell her. I mean, whatever. It's
Yeah,
fine.
something like that. I would definitely be nice on
Yeah.
that. But they could be some nasty blue heads though out there though.
Well,
So,
and, sometimes they go back and forth
but
depending
I
on their
guess when
mood.
you're 80, 90, they're allowed to be whatever the fuck they want to, I guess.
Yeah. Yeah.
Um, but yeah, but that was, yeah, I couldn't believe that someone would actually kind of ask that, want to know the answer to that because it's pretty, yeah, you're
Yeah.
gonna get educated for the most part.
Indeed. I saw a post from a struggling new dispatcher who was asking about how to learn to understand what people were saying on the radio, which I totally empathize with that.
Hmm.
And then how to remember that information to regurgitate it. And the post didn't specify whether this was specific to law enforcement or fire radio. I assumed law enforcement, but it was only day 4 of this poor guy's training. So I feel like that's really early to be expected to understand,
Yeah,
regurgitate, and process information from the radio,
heck yeah.
particularly if it's a busy center. I
Hmm.
mean, because our trainings usually sit for several weeks just listening and learning the jargon. Because pretty much every agency, even though whether, like we used to use 10 codes, we don't anymore. If you're, you know, compliant with the national system, you don't use 10 codes.
Right.
But there's still a jargon, there's still words that each agency uses that are different, and accents, rhythms to the way they
Yeah.
say stuff, you know? And even, for instance, depending on how your cat is set up, if the officers on the street are working with you to give you the information in the order that you need it, it's going to come in a certain rhythm.
Hmm.
And if that's not how your brain thinks that it should go, um, it's going to be interesting. I mean, every now and then you'll get the rogue officer that says some weird shit, and you're like, what? Um,
Yeah, like it would fuck me up every time our traffic guys would say one niner. And I'm like, a who, whatter, what?
that's
Like,
usually right. That's usually the ex-military guys that are gonna say that weird shit.
I mean, and it's, yes, I understood what you said. You're trying to tell me one nine, but just adding that you have just
Right.
totally fucked me up.
Right. Well, and do you remember 533 traffic or 553 traffic? Tra traffic? Does that mean you
What
gonna
is,
say something?
what are
Or
you on? Yeah,
because
you
they're
on the
supposed to
highway? There's a
say,
lot of traffic or what?
right? Because what they would normally say would be traffic stop,
Hmm.
go with the plate, right? And like, and then I'm like, traffic, okay, are you gonna say something else? Do I need to say something? What's happening? That, like, yes. So I totally empathize with this guy. And, when I started dispatching, I had just moved to the area. And we talked about it in one of the other episodes, I remember. But that's Central Virginia mumble, which is not as prevalent in the like suburban area where we work together. But out in the country, that's Central Virginia mumble. And the volunteer firemen, good God, I don't know what you're saying. And then God forbid you should have SCBA on because whatever. I don't know. And it took a while to get used to that. And people just also sound different over the radio. And some people, they got to swallow the mic, and some people hold it far away, and some people just get excited when they talk on the radio. Like you have to kind of get used to
Mm-hmm.
the nuances of it, and it takes time. If it's somebody who's really having a hard time, one of the things that we would do generally when we train people was like let them listen, or like let them talk and respond to the radio traffic, but we would type what was happening.
Mm-hmm.
So if they missed something, right, they would see us typing it out and be like, "Oh, that's what that sounded like," which I think is helpful for somebody training. Also, got to be super helpful to go on a ride along, if especially if you're a visual learner, because just seeing them in their rhythm talking on the radio as they're doing stuff would be helpful. Um, and I thought, I did a little research on it, and I thought pretty much everything that I saw talked about active listening is an essential dispatcher skill, which, yes, sort of. It's an essential call taker skill for sure,
Mm-hmm. For sure.
right? But active listening is like you're listening to have a conversation, to empathize with the person. And when you're taking information from the radio, you're not, right? You're either taking the information to log it and do something with it, or you're taking it and regurgitating it. You may be taking in some information to give to somebody else, or to make a suggestion, or, something.
Mm-hmm.
But those conversations are sort of less frequent than the other two, where you're either regurgitating or you're processing. And so it was interesting because when I was doing the research, I found an article from the Department of Defense, actually out of the Air Force, that they were talking about the different types of listening that they needed. They talked about informative listening, critical listening, and empathic listening. So, informative is you listen to collect information from others, which is what you're doing generally when you're taking information either from a law enforcement officer or even from fire rescue personnel sizing up a scene, right? You're
Mm-hmm.
taking it. And then, yes, you might have to regurgitate it depending on your agency's policies. Like we do that for fire rescue scene size ups. We also do that for like pursuits,
Mm-hmm.
like what, like SWAT call out, things like that, right? Where there's
Yeah.
critical information that may need to be relayed to other officers or may need to be documented. Then you're also having to
Mm-hmm.
regurgitate that information.
So now it's broadcasted again, like
Right. And so
to make
in
sure
that,
everyone's on the same page.
right. So I think it's really important that you learn sort of that rhythm off the officers, and you learn like what type of listening you're going to have to be doing,
Mm-hmm.
right? If you hear 456 traffic stop, all right, right now I'm collecting information, right? And then when he says he's running,
What do you
okay,
know if you ever hear
right,
456,
456 traffic stop, he's
they're
right,
going
that's
to
the
be
next
running.
thing. He's
Yeah.
running.
So,
So you better collect that information if he had any to give you real quick.
real
And
quick.
then go into, all right, now I'm going to have to also regurgitate this information. And it's just a matter of sort of training your brain to
Mm-hmm.
have that plasticity and go, okay, this I need to regurgitate. And believe me, I have taken plenty of fire scene size ups. Hell, I have talked to plenty of people on the phone and asked them their name. And when I went to type it in, I couldn't remember it. Or, a fire scene size up and they said, single story on a basement. And I'm like, two-story on a foundation, like, I don't know. Sometimes it happens.
Yeah.
But you have to sort of train your brain to know, okay, I have to remember this information. And I also would have like a shorthand that I would use for typing things like that if I knew it
Good
was something
idea.
that I was going to have to regurgitate back. Um, and then the other type of listening, like if you go to critical in listening that the Air Force talked about in their article, it's like then you're listening to judge and evaluate the situation. So that's like, a fire scene size up. You might be, oh, it came out as an alarm. They marked on scene with smoke showing. Now I need to upgrade it, right? Like, so you know that you're having to make evaluations. Same thing, he's running. Well, now I have to add more
Yep.
units
Yep.
to this call. And empathic listening is like when we're listening to understand and help others in the situation where emotions are involved, the speaker and the message are important. That's to me mostly like call taking, right?
Hmm.
That, I mean, usually you're not getting into those conversations over the radio. If the shit's going down, it's going down. You're taking the information, you're spitting it back out. You're not having a
Right.
kumbaya
Right.
moment, right? It's like, um, so you just have to be able to train your brain. And I would listen to radio traffic. Like, I know when I switched agencies, I would listen, I was used to dispatching fire rescue, so I would listen to the law enforcement radio when I had downtime and I would type things in the notes. I would, run numbers. I would do things like that so that I was
Hmm.
like learning and learning the jargon, learning the words because sometimes,
Yeah.
and back then when we used 10 codes, I'm like, I don't know what that means.
God, I love me some 10 codes.
Oh God, all you old school people did. And
Yep.
I remember I would just be like, when we went to not 10 codes, I would just be like, repeat. And they repeat the 10 code. No, I don't know. You have to explain that because I don't know what that means. Let me flip through my notebook here. No. And then of course you do get to know the common ones, right? The funny
Yes, you
ones.
yes,
Um,
most
but
definitely.
every now and then somebody will come up with an off the wall one and you're like, wait, what?
Yeah.
But yeah.
And I would say too, while we're talking about this, and don't, just a tip for me, and I was so guilty of this when I was first starting out, was I was always in the habit of writing shit down with pen and paper instead of
Hmm.
typing it in the computer at the time. I felt like it was safer or whatnot for me to write it on paper, but then your ass has to go in and type it anyway. So now you're already behind. But
Right.
for whatever reason, I was really comfortable with that. And it took a really long time to get away from that. So don't get into that habit, especially starting out. Like, train yourself now not to do that, and never assume that you heard something. Like, if you don't know, then you need to ask them to repeat. Whether they get pissed or you think they get mad, so what? You'd rather them be mad at you than something really awful happen. Um,
Right.
Never assume if you don't know.
Right. And I used to do the same thing with the writing. I think that's an old people thing. Um,
Yeah, probably so, because I do that even now, but of course I don't have to do any of
but
this stuff.
yeah, I didn't do it so much when I went to the law enforcement radio because I had already kind of trained myself not to. But
Hmm.
especially back in the day when we had that old ass tone board and you had to like get
Yeah.
all of the companies in order, like I would write them beasts down quick so that,
Hmm.
if I screwed it up and I had to clear the board, I could do it again, quicker. But yeah, I think that's definitely if you have to like think of some shorthand, think of some things like make the associations in your brain so that you can remember. And um yes, ask. I mean, I know there was one, and this was a ranking person in particular that would get so pissed at me when I was training on the patrol radio. Look, dude, I can't understand your language. I don't know what that is. And I did know what it was because he actually came from the jurisdiction where I had worked previously. But look, you have got to learn to speak English. I can't understand that. And oh my God, but I would ask, just repeat, because when they know that you don't understand their mumble mouth sucking the radio up
Hmm.
crap, they will stop doing it.
Yep.
But if you rely on that replay button or you rely on your partners to tell you, and I know there's always times when we're like, what do you say? And somebody else, boom,
Yeah.
from across the room just picked it up.
Them fucking overachiever bitches.
Oh, right. I mean, and sometimes, I mean, like sometimes I'll be sitting on the fire radio and I'm not doing anything and I have the radio on and I just happen to hear it. And I'm like,
Hmm.
yeah, that's what he said. I'm not being bitchy about it. It's just like I heard it. Now there are people who are the overachievers and they're bitchy about it.
Yes, that is who I'm talking about, who want
Right.
to have every radio.
Right. And I won't even, if those people didn't hear, I'm not even going to tell them that I heard it because you know what?
Yep.
Young, young. But anyways, that's petty. But like, yeah, it's so just training your ear and training your brain. And one of the suggestions that somebody had, and I thought was a good one too, was also to try switching your headset to your other ear. Like for me, I'm right-handed. I like write everything I do
Hmm.
on the right side. I am left eye dominant, and I'm a left ear person.
Oh, wow.
Yeah. So talk about being a weird thing when you're learning to shoot because I'm right-handed, but I'm left eye dominant. So I just thought that was an interesting and valid um valid suggestion. Like if you think like that's a problem, definitely try switching it up and seeing if that helps.
Yep. Those are
Um,
some good points. I totally forgot about the replay button. That's a good one because you definitely get hooked on relying on that way too much.
yeah, and I never did because I feel like I feel like our deputies talk too damn much. And so
Hmm.
every time you hit the replay button, one of them was going to key up
Yep. And then
and you
you'd go
weren't going to hear
miss
it
it
anyway.
anyways.
So it's
Yeah.
like, you know what? It's easier for me to just butt in and say, "What'd you say?"
Yep. Yep.
Um,
You're right.
yeah, but
So I just want to say something that totally has nothing to do with this. But you had mentioned a few minutes ago about when the fire guys have their SCBA.
mhm.
Shut up. Yeah, well, they're Michael Myers piece. Well, we all know because I've said it 1,000 times on here that the fire radio or anything fire related was, well, not my thing. However, with that said, I work for a local fire department where I'm an admin. And so, why did my dumbass think that an SCBA was scuba gear for our dive and water rescue team? So yeah, there's your funny for the night. Call me a
That is
dumbass
pretty
because I
hilarious, actually.
am totally dumb, but I just got a kick out of that because I'm like, what? We have
That's
scuba
funny.
gear? We're going to order scuba gear? Yeah, totally not what that is.
So,
Making shit up.
oh my God.
But anyways,
Love it.
well, Bug, this has been quite a fun night. Something a little different for us. But we do want to remind everyone to keep listening, following, sharing, commenting on the polls that we drop and questions that we post because it is a lot of fun to hear the different feedback. And we're starting to pick up, get some more, a lot of other people that, we don't even really know commenting. So that's pretty cool. Um, and for some no good reason you're getting bored with our topics, tell us what you want to discuss. Better yet, come on the show. You know, we're always saying you can be a guest. We love to talk to everyone. We can talk about pretty much whatever you want to. Um,
Right.
we can
And
be
we've had
found
some
on,
good
yeah,
suggestions lately. So we got some,
some things lining up.
we are
Yep.
working on episodes for those of you that have put in. We're getting that stuff
Indeed.
together. So definitely find us on the socials, and I put all of the links in the show notes. So, and you can email us.
Mm-hmm. At 911 Delta at Yahoo. Oh, wait a minute. It's podcast 911 Delta at yahoo.com. Sorry, guys. And can message us on Messenger as well, Instagram, any of those platforms. We're not hard to find. So
Right.
just
And
got to do it, people. I
yep, talk to us so we know so we know. And also, Comm Week's coming up
know.
next
Yay.
month. So, what is everybody hoping for from their agency?
Well, this is going to be a good one.
Mm-hmm.
Come on, y'all.
Do you guys get stuff? Do you not get stuff? Is it fun stuff? Whatever.
Like,
And let us know what you like, what you
yeah,
don't like. Let us know if your agency doesn't do anything.
you never know. Might get a surprise or
We want to
something.
hear it.
Yes, indeed. Well, guys, until next week. Bye.
Bye.
I have no qualification tonight. I'm up, right?